Damon had the wrong link, so I just sent it to him. It's good to know there's no viewers anyway, so. Boo, 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 boo. There we go. All right, see him. We're almost. You there?
Yeah.
All right.
You can hear me, huh?
I can hear you, and I think we're live. So, Joe, if you can just flip over to the dual cam view. There we go. All right. So, we had a couple technical difficulties here, but we are now live with FabCity now. We're kind of diving into all of what it takes to achieve this very ambitious goal of becoming a city that produces all that it consumes. And I've got a good friend here, Damon Hernandez, whom I've known for quite some time. And Damon, why don't you just kind of give a brief introduction to you and why you think you're here?
Yeah, so thanks, Danny, for having me. So my name is Damon Hernandez, based out of San Francisco, California for a little bit, and focused on interactive 3D and web-based 3D and how that applies to not just our built environment, but really reality. So I think I'm here because I'm very interested in the way of producing locally, as well as being able to use data that comes from builders, manufacturers, and DIY people, and see how we can use that all throughout the product, or in some cases, buildings life cycle.
So you're making video games for buildings?
That's a gross oversimplification, but it's like using video game-like technologies to improve real-world processes, and yep.
All right. So real life video games for buildings.
And more, yes.
All right. So this work of FabCity has been it's somewhat new to me. It's probably the last 4 or 5 years, but I think we've known each other for 15 or so years at this point. And it was an introduction to both yourself and Greg, who's been on here too, that really turned me on to all this stuff in the first place. It let me know that there was essentially a whole different way of building, not only buildings, but nearly everything. Through CNC and digital fabrication and all these other things. I how did you get connected? How did you kind of connect these skill sets in your background to buildings and construction? Where did that marriage come in?
Well, I think it started really with my interest of kind of, the term now it's digital twin, but just the digital representation of the real world. And that kind of being the PlayStation 5 meets Google Earth smashed together. And that's been an interest of mine for about 20 years now. So just that idea, originally it was the idea of being able to go and visit places that one couldn't normally go to through interfaces like Google Earth. But then over time, I met people like Greg, and then builders, and then identifying that, there's entire industries that are creating 3D assets that, will be the digital twins. And so between that and just my interest in web technologies, that's where, the interest around kind of the 3D world part of World Wide Web is what kind of took the interest of web development and web design and immersive technologies like VR and AR, and then really apply those to the built environment professions, since they were the ones that essentially were generating the most detailed buildings, right, and environments.
Mm-hmm. And so the AACE Hackathon is the AEC Architecture, Engineering, and Construction Hackathon is something that you have been a big part of. Can you just give a little brief history and what that is and what kind of relevance it has today?
Yeah, so the AEC Hackathon is really the built environment hackathon, is focused on bringing together technologists with the different professionals from the built environment professions. So not just A, E, and C, but facilities management, operations, geospatial, policy, and city. And so how do you bring together all of these folks to be able to solve Monday through Friday problems, usually over the course of a weekend? And now, because of course, COVID, we're running the hackathon online. So for 2 weeks, it's actually going on right now as we speak, for the next week and a half. And so that's kind of the idea, really, is bring together passionate folks from tech, from the built environment, solve Monday through Friday problems. And what it's grown into over the past 7 years, because of an amazing community of people, really is the largest and organization for open innovation in the built environment professions. So that's what's neat, is it's a community driven initiative where people are not only solving their own problems, but they're sharing a lot of those solutions to the global audience. So very exciting.
So kind of people are putting down their company. I don't know. I'm gonna say their company shirt, but they're kind of putting that stuff aside for the weekend, typically when they're doing this stuff, and really putting their knowledge, investing their knowledge collectively in order to get the best open source solutions out on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's been interesting to observe what it's turned into, right? I mean, as you know, a person who's done a lot of grassroots things, you plant a seed, but then other people and others, and you watch it grow, and how it blooms is unknown. You have an idea of how it will go, but ultimately to see that is unknown. And what we have observed over time is how the hackathon, yes, it does remove that shirt, so to speak, and the fact of hierarchies are squished into pancakes. So it doesn't matter if you're a student with a passion, or a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar construction firm, or someone just in between. Everyone comes and wants to collaborate, right? And adds value on the team. So that's really cool to see. A new attitude that's definitely needed, right? Because most professions just you go out there and it's kind of what the people at the top say. It's not, hey, everyone put in some value. So just in a new way of thinking and communication to solve problems, that has been a very cool observation. And I think that also the collaborative nature of firms. So yes, you're taking your shirt off, you're coming just as a representative. Hey, I'm X, and I'm passionate about changing this component, not I'm Damon with this affiliation that works at this big company and blah blah blah. And then build things, right? And then yes, they do open source a lot of these things, because again, it's high tide raises all ships. So
Mm-hmm. And one of the, I was there at the first hackathon that you guys launched, and I guess this speaks well to your professional network, but it seems like from day one it was a success.
Mm.
Give me kind of your experience of that first event, and because you mostly just put this out through your networks, talked to a handful of people within the industry, and said, hey, let's do this crazy thing, and we're going to do it once and see what happens. I was surprised as kind of the turnout and people's enthusiasm and everything else. So what was your impression of that first one?
Completely blown away, right? I was shockingly surprised at the amount of folks. I thought it was just going to be 10 of my closest friends, not 130 people from all around the world at Facebook, and folks representing mainly medium sized to large firms, right, that are in this industry, as well as an amazing set of speakers. So of course biased, but from day one it was a major success. And then again, just go ahead.
I was like, just the fact that you pulled in people from literally around the world for something that you've never done before, and hadn't even really heavily promoted, but somehow people found out, and I think there was a team from Denmark or something like that raised their hand. I remember that kind of shock and awe on your face when it was like, okay, well, how many people are from the state? How many people are from
So, Danny, I think we might have a little bit of. There you are.
Okay. Yeah. This is I've been killing the data on my phone because I've got 3 Wi-Fi networks around me and they all suck, and my phone is getting great signal. I paid $500 last month for my cell phone bill. I'm going to be looking at something similar.
No worries. So if I understood you correctly, you were just saying about the people who came from far away, like how that happened, and
Right.
if I caught all that, I think it was just it was of course LinkedIn was perfect for getting the word out, really more than anything else, and then just a good group of folks that were supportive from day one. People like Greg House, who you mentioned yourself. Dave Arendash, Paul Doherty, Hugh Seaton. I mean, there's a variety of different folks that all contributed to helping spread. And I think, but most importantly, and I think like any good idea, it really is about timing, right? It's being fortunate with when you decide to execute, and it's the right time for something, right? Because right after we had that hackathon, then you saw our friends at Thornton Tomasetti. They have a hackathon which also is about to start in a great event. AACE Tech Symposium and Hackathon. There's other groups like the Digital Built Environment. I think that DVEI or something like that. That they have a hackathon, and so it was about timing. It was about just people needing it, and yeah, good communication on social media.
So you attribute some of the early success to good timing?
Completely. And yeah. And then just I think being passionate about it. I mean, one thing that is I don't know the right word to use, perhaps, but that's shocking for me because of how shocking it is to others is when people ask, "What's your motivation? What's your angle?" This is that and when you let people know that you're like, hey, I'm doing this for the same reason that all these other people are doing it, is because we're all driven by our passions to improve the industry. This isn't my day job. I mean, the people who win prizes have made more money from the hackathon than I'll ever make. So so that's exciting, is to see that when other folks in the various different countries, observe that people are doing this because it's that genuine passion for improvement. it changes not only their attitude, but then they step into an environment that's way more about facilitation of collaboration than, we're here to, because, big company X is wanting us to solve their problem, or this events company wants, their sponsors to, get a good ROI or whatever. Right. So that's a fun thing that I also enjoy.
And what's one of the, I don't know, I think I've asked you this a few times in the past now, but you keep doing more hackathons, so there's more and more innovation that's happening. What's one of the kind of the craziest things that has come out of this that maybe you couldn't have expected at all?
Yeah, well, of course, not being someone from construction, I think the very specific tools that are developed are things that I would not know, just because you don't know what you don't know, right? Things for, like, using computer vision for concrete estimation, or tracking lost tools, or a hack that I thought was really just clever in its simplicity was a guy who came and just worked with a group of essentially software engineer students from the 42 school, and they developed just a little program that ran in the background to see if when Revit was processing a file, if it was actually processing a file, or if it was just hung and not responding. And if it was not responding, then that would send something out to IT to upgrade the computer, because they would lose, his whole problem was, we spend 5, sometimes 10 minutes loading up these Revit models, and just to have them crash and then try it again, and that's 20 minutes of someone's time right there. And so if, is it the computer or is it the file? And so he did this calculation where he showed that with that, just on his team alone, he was going to be saving his company, thousands of dollars. And then to look at that many teams across, the whole company, it was now we're talking about the kind of stuff that makes the CFO happy, and others, right? So that, and it was simple, such a simple hack. The students themselves were like, yeah, we spent more time on the interface to show it than actually building the thing. But again, that's an example where then you go to the other extreme, where just even recently in Oakland, right, there was a group that, a group of people from all over, really, did a neat thing to help get kids engaged in construction, is what they disguised it as. But it was really about being able to build and fabricate essentially treehouse structures, right? And they use computer vision to be able to look at the trees in the environment, or a laser scan, and then be able to auto-generate essentially platforms that could be constructed. And not just for tree houses, but you could make a whole, like, Ewok village, right? Going across, and then they actually built one. And Hack My Tree House, and so that was kind of a neat everything in the kitchen sink, because they used variety forms of reality capture, from a Matterport scan to the more interesting LiDAR, even with one of the new robotic dogs, Spot. They built the computer vision. Yeah, I mean, it was, if you watch the presentation from the AACE Hackathon YouTube channel, Hack My Treehouse. Of course, watch them all, but that one was really kind of clever. That's just fresh on the mind.
Well, and I think for myself, one of one of my little rugrats chiming in here. One of the events that I went to up in Seattle, and a couple of those hacks actually stuck with me, was kind of the Siri for the job site. Where essentially you could just they were feeding in all of the data from the Revit files, from the scheduling software, from all everywhere, and you could just ask nearly any question about the job site.
Yeah.
When's the next concrete truck coming? How many yards is in it? How much rebar is in the entire job?
Yeah.
Like, just asking information like that and being able to get your answers essentially just on demand is pretty awesome, because tools like that took a decade to build, and now in a weekend someone's recreating a version of that specifically for their own job site. And it doesn't make sense for a small remodel on your house necessarily, but when you're building a skyscraper, it makes a ton of sense, because just the amount of time it saves you,
Yeah.
and being able to just have that quick, reference, and the fact that you can share that tool with anybody on the job site. So it's not just a tool for the executives. Like, anybody can have that much information at their fingertips.
Yeah. Well, that, and that's a great point, because I've seen that in a few different manifestations. I mean, even recently in the online event, we had one of the winning teams was called Hey Henry. And it was just that exact same thing. It was being able to ask for the scheduling, because they showed, again, when someone says, hey, what does it say in the schedule? Someone has to visually go look in the schedule or schedules to try to find where that information is. And so they built essentially through the Google Voice Assistant, I believe, is the platform they used. But to that, and so, but I would also, though, add on to what you said is that I do see where just voice as an interface is becoming so much quicker, right? And so to the fact that, yeah, even if you are doing a small home remodel project, I do think there would be a certain audience out there that would like to say, hey, I don't want to say the A word because mine will come on, but hey, voice assistant, when is the plumber coming this week to fix the toilet? And if that could say, this, but it's waiting on your toilet to be ordered from Amazon, and, would you like us to check on that order or something, right? So I think that there's, a lot of room for just that type of thing at any size project.
Yeah. Of the job site, and and in essence, all right. So my all right. Thanks for the comments, Joe. I see it's happening. Um, but it was another hack where essentially they were creating the capability of taking pictures on a job site for documentation purposes. Um, and the actual deployment on that would be everybody on the job site could have an app. And you finish a job for the day, you take a picture. You start the job for the day, you take a picture. And then we're able to overlay those images on a 3D model of the actual job site, of the actual building you're building, and also having I don't know, there's an altimeter or something inside the phone that can also tell you you're on the ground floor, you're on the second floor, third floor, etc. And just having access to that level of data. And nowadays there are companies that have 3D scans where you can go scan the job site every day, essentially. So you're getting something similar, but this was a way of crowdsourcing that before that was even an option.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting to see the level of innovation that's there, and and sometimes it's it's bigwigs that are stepping in doing it, and other time it's it's people on the bottom of the totem pole that have this innovation in them, this drive in them to bring some new value that didn't exist before.
Exactly. And that's the great thing is that when I see it in an event, all the way from a person who's doing their lightning round remotely because they're walking around the job site, right? That's boots on the ground. I'm about to go
Sure.
haul some stuff across, all the way to the executive who is coming to figure this out and see what it's about. That's all. Yeah, that's why I said it's that higher, and it's pancaking, right? It's taking the person out in the field directly with the person who is the decision maker, and then building the solutions for them, by them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this kind of taps into some of my work a little bit of helping to train the workforce and train people on the future of construction. And it's not, our system has been doing a good job of keeping the high level folks abreast of new technology, new updates, and all of that. But we still do a really bad job of teaching the person who's responsible for physically implementing that innovation, physically implementing those designs on the job site. And we're still used to hiring low skilled labor and say go have at it.
Yeah.
So, I've been pushing and promoting for the longest time is that, the people that are responsible for swinging the hammer need to also understand how to 3D model, need to also understand, how the parts are coming off the machine,
Yeah.
because when something's done wrong, they have the power to fix it, rather than they have to be kind of helpless, or they just, run over and grab the skill saw and modify it that way. For too long, the construction industry has not focused on the people who do the actual work. And we just kind of stay in this ivory tower mentality with architects, with even, sometimes even general contractors. I know at least on smaller jobs, general contractors typically are belts on and get dirty. But it's important that you're sharing the knowledge and the skills about how new technologies are influencing the built environment.
Yeah, and I think it's great when one can connect with all the different levels. What was really exciting for me about the last hackathon that we had back in July is we had the United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters. It's a much longer title than that, but here was this union that came. Had an idea. They came with assets. They said, "Hey, we're looking for a team to help us educate essentially the next wave of plumbers and pipe fitters, and we have this training module that we'd like to do on one of our trailers, and we're looking for a team. We have some ideas." And they found a team of folks that not only built this amazing solution that used the Matterport scan and overlaid the information and made it really cool, right? Because let's be honest, young people don't want to go do anything that sounds boring and lame and doesn't use tech, compared to if you say, "Hey, do you want to go do that and be like Tony Stark or Iron Man?" And I mean, which one is going to be more appealing to a digital native? And that's exactly what Ken and this group of folks did from UA. Is they took their training to a whole new level, right? That incorporates, interactive 3D. It's all web based, has some cool 2D graphics, even has a VR component. And so that is what was neat, is because not only was it going out to the people that are going to be out there getting dirty, it also was speaking the language of the next wave of the people that are just like, make me the 21st century plumber, not the 20th century plumber. I want to do the cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and when it comes to educating the next thing and others, is nobody wants, many of the young folks don't have the attention span. They don't have the attention span to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to give you 5 years of my life. Let's start today. I'm going to commit 5 years starting today, and 5 years from now I'm going to make some decent money and this other stuff. It's like, no, like let me put you in front of a CNC machine right now, and let me show you what's possible. And you don't have to wait 5 years to be able to run the machine. You can be running the machine tomorrow if you're dedicated enough. It's get in there and make it exciting. Help people understand. All right, I'm back here at least.
There we go.
Damon back. Okay. Sorry about that. In North Carolina at the moment, and I'm streaming from my RV, which is you're hearing my family in the background and seeing the bouncing of the camera because we're on shocks here. But what I was referencing is there was a conversation around workforce development where we're talking more specifically about skilled trades and manufacturing education. So they want to bring young people, and these are people that are already disconnected from school. So they need a sales pitch that they've never heard before, because any sales pitch they've heard thus far has not worked on them. And they're like, okay, cool. We want to do a career exploration. So we want to give them an understanding of different opportunities and different jobs that they want to get into. And we're going to start off this with surveying everybody at the very beginning and try to figure out what you're interested in. And my first pushback started there, which was like, well, but that doesn't even make sense because we haven't exposed them to 95% of all of the opportunities out there for them. And you're surveying them based upon their very limited knowledge of what is possible in the first place. So right there, we're doing a huge disservice because people are going to give you answers that aren't educated.
Yes.
Uh, because they don't know that there are
It's always horrible when it freezes.
Okay, we're back for a moment. So we're probably going to truncate this so it's not an hour, so we don't have that happen 20 times. But they followed up with the surveying everyone early on, and then we want to throw them into a class. And now this is all happening virtually, which I'm like, okay, hold on. Now we're trying to do something virtually with people with hands-on training. And they're already kind of fed up with virtual everything at this point. But we're gonna have this career exploration where we're gonna lecture at them all morning long, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that for 2 months and lecture at them, giving them exposure to other things that they didn't know that were out there. And then after that, we're gonna follow it up with some version of either hands-on, if we're legally allowed to do so, or something that's at least more in depth. We're going to do a virtual tour of a manufacturing facility or something like that, something that will be more exciting. And my recommendation was, why don't you flip that? Because there's no point in talking to people who are already disconnected. You need to go get them excited. You need to you need them to see that scene operating and see what's coming off of that thing. They want to see the sparks flying. You need to get them over, and they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, whatever. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. And they might get excited later when they see the sparks flying, but get them excited first, and then they get a reason to listen to you. Anyways, that felt like a bit of a rant.
That's
there.
Okay. We're all known to rant at a time or two, and it's the point of a good conversation. But yes, people don't know what they don't know, and expose them right to what's possible and what's out there, and definitely hands on. But like with all things, right? It just takes time. Yes, you can jump right into a CNC machine and get your hands working with it, but it's going to take time to get good at it, right? And so I think it all depends on just whatever. Follow what you're interested in, right? And there are great resources out there and great communities, and that's what's neat, right? I mean, even in my lack of exposure, and mainly through you, but I've seen how the idea of Fab Labs is much different than it was 10, 12 years ago, right? And so if I were a maker that moved somewhere else, there is a high chance that somewhere in my city or town, there might be a 3D printer or a CNC machine or something, right, where I can go and add value, or pursue just a personal interest. But yeah,
right, yeah, and get excited about something.
exactly.
One bigger topic that I want to bring up before we cut this off, and it's going to be a short episode just because of all the technical difficulties here. But ever since I've known you, you have been kind of pushing and promoting VR, and then shortly after, I think AR entered in, and you helped design these AR business cards, and I think this was probably a decade ago. It seems like today the world has definitely caught up, and especially when we're dealing with kind of the COVID times, like having good virtual training, good virtual education, is we're really seeing it happen through AR and VR. Can you just kind of, I don't know, jump in with your experience in that realm, what you saw 10, 15 years ago when you really started kind of promoting this stuff, and what you see happening next.
Yeah. So it's neat, like you said, right? When finally kind of mainstream adoption catches up to ideas and work. The more than VR or AR, I think it's always been really about interactive 3D. We're 3D creatures. We live in a 3D world. That's how we learn. And so if you can provide that same thing for someone, usually on a flat 2D interface, that's one thing. But as the technology moved further along, and yeah, I mean, as you remember, we had some of those headsets and things like that. 2007, 2008, even though VR's been around for decades, but we were playing with it when it was way more expensive than it is now. So that exposure, it's about the communication tool, right? And that's really what is so great about interactive 3D, is that one, it already puts the information in the way that we process, gives it spatial relationship, helps us build that in our mind. And then if you need to go further, if I just don't get it on a flat screen, on my phone, my tablet, or my TV, now I can either step into the experience to learn it or overlay the experience onto the real worlds to perform the task at hand. And that's really exciting, right? And that's why, for me, I really try to advocate to people that, it's like, don't necessarily build a VR or AR application. Build an interactive 3D application that has VR and AR features. And I think, now what's really exciting is I try to really tell people, if you are going to develop an application, go mobile first, right? That's in everybody's pocket. There's, I've been in lots of parts of the world, and most people have a cell phone. And yeah, so that's what's kind of exciting about the visualization and immersive technologies, is they help with communication, right? Because a lot of what we've talked about today, and then just even in some of the presentations that I watched from the speakers that we had at the hackathon, is a lot of the problems in the built environment professions really comes from communication and really understanding what's going to be built. And if you can give people the opportunity to not only see it, but go in and experience it, hell, even feel it, in some cases, smell it or whatever, proper acoustics, all of that, depending upon the level, that's power. That's powerful. And that's how, processes get faster. That's how they maintain a higher level of quality, and ideally come in on time. So yeah, it's exciting to see that technology coming out more. I'll be honest, given the fact that we've been in it so long, I'd like to see people pushing the envelope a little bit more. This is a call out. I know a lot of the companies that provide these VR and AR services, and hey, I like what you're doing. And you can only move as fast as the industry adopts. But now that we're starting to see more adoption, let's up the game, right? Let's see some of the cool design experiences where, if I'm looking at something on my phone in 3D and you're there and you decide to put on the VR headset, that I can be controlling my experience from my phone while you're doing that in the VR. But then I can, put on my AR glasses and then pull it out of my phone and set it onto the floor here, right? And then maybe your wife wants to see it, so you just project it to your TV, right? And then she can see what the three of us are working on. And so that's the only thing I would say, is I want to see now where folks get inspired by maybe things like Marvel movies and science fiction, and how do you take those types of interfaces and experiences to bring that into where we're starting to see how these things are adding value now. That'd be super exciting.
And where are you seeing good implementation of AR, VR, interactive training when it comes to skilled trades, or trades or manufacturing education? Do you see, are there really good early adopters that are doing it well, or is everybody still really young in it?
Different people have been doing it for different times, right? It was just who could afford it. I mean, back when headsets were $30,000, for a headset. You know, now it's $300 for a headset. So the cost of doing this is, you know, making it to where more people can do it, but there is value in it. That's why people continue to do it. You know, like our friend Hugh Seaton over at the Glimpse Group. You know, they're doing some really amazing stuff, and he could talk all day long with you know, good stats on how training helps when you're able to go inside, right, and you know, and do it. So it does work. It's just, you know, the solutions need to be driven by the educators, the subject matter experts, more, I feel, than the people who are just like building tech, you know, because you don't understand learning methodologies and these other things, right? You know, there's more to educational applications than having text pop up with the right answer, you know, when something gets clicked on. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of value there, a lot of great resources. Realities Summit, I think, is one of these, that's really good from the educational perspective. Now, just in closing this thought, I think the thing that's always exciting for me to always stumble upon is how VR and AR, to those who really find value in it, it's just a hammer and it's just a screwdriver. It's nothing to really get hyped up about. It's a tool, right? And I remember one time, you know, I was actually at a building industry related event, even though I speak to many different industries about the use of interactive 3D and these technologies. And I asked someone, you know, that worked at this construction firm, you know, I said, hey, you know, your company uses VR and AR. You have a booth here, and at this one event, I saw more HoloLens than I did at the game developers conference. You know, different people providing different services. There was VR, there was AR, there was laser scanning, and all of this stuff. And I said, you know, you should go talk to the people in the VR and AR industry, right? You know, I mean, and in my own, you know, jaded perception, I feel that it's a lot of the same speakers. You know, you hear how enterprise is using this stuff, but you know, you see the same people from the same companies that are presenting year after year at these different conferences. So, you know, mix it up a little bit, some fresh blood. And the guy gave me the best answer. But it wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was the answer that I needed. And he said, hey, Damon, you ever use a hammer? And I said, yeah. And he said, how many hammer conventions you go to, and let them know how awesome the hammer is. When you start doing that, I'll come to your conferences, right? And I thought that was beautiful, right? Because that's the thing. We don't know how many people use hammers and are successful with it, but we know that it's a tool. We know it adds value and that you need to have one. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of virtual reality is, you know, there's way more people out there using it that are finding value in it, that they're like, yeah, this works. Okay, let me get back to focusing on what I actually do or what it does, instead of spending time to come out and promote and, you know, and you know, build up hype and that kind of thing. So
Well, yeah, and you know, the College of Alameda, one of the places where I have a Fab Lab, during this pandemic, education is getting reinvented, which is ripe for this. And you know, I find myself actually, I had a conversation with my mother-in-law about a year ago, where I really prophesized and said, you know, not too far in the future, you know, 5-10 years from now, our educational system, our higher ed, is going to look entirely different. You know, anything that can go online is likely going online. The one thing that you're not going to be throwing online, at least nearly as much, is the physical stuff, is the trades education and these other things. Because otherwise, you can get you know, you can go to Harvard now online for free. You can go to MIT for free. So why are you going to a community college? Why does community college think is going to compete with, you know, with those institutions when that education is essentially for free? And you know, she didn't believe that kind of rapid change was going to happen. And now, like, I'm standing back, like, look around. This is what's happened now. Like, anything that can go online is getting pushed online. You know, and yeah, and you know, that future is showing up substantially faster than I thought it was going to. And you know, for a reason I didn't expect. But one of the, you know, interesting things with the College of Alameda is that we had our aviation maintenance department approach us approached the Fab Lab and said, "Hey, we don't really understand this VR thing, but can you help us? We want to begin to incorporate these kinds of tools into our training." And it was really motivated by the pandemic because they have a lot less ability to, to physically bring their students together. They're doing some, but very minimal. And now we're helping them by both modeling and scanning parts to the motors and other components to the airplanes, so that they have these tools to train their students. And it's not purely just a thing that is only for the pandemic era. It's going to become a tool that is going to be incorporated into all of their curriculum. And so we're seeing some of that adoption, and I would love to see assistance for this coming from places other than myself, or other than the Fab Lab, because all of our educational institutions are dealing with the same challenges, and yet nobody higher up, from the state level or the federal level, is showing up and saying, "Here's these new tools to help you be more effective and more in this training."
Yeah. Well, it's it's interesting because I like the fact that, here you have a Fab Lab that's using VR, because again, then that goes to, if you can show how those things work, right? That's why I've often liked working with you on projects, is because, you're the builder maker person, right? And so that cycle of, how it goes from, bits to atoms, and how those atoms can get things attached to them to control the bits. And, it's like this really neat cycle. That to me, first of all, is, I highly encourage all Fab Labs that, have a VR, school that has a VR department as well. Merge those people. If you're a university and you have these two different departments doing stuff, have them communicate, right? A really great tool, Make VR, I think is what it's called, but it's by Sixth Sense. Some good folks over there, and it was neat. They put this VR front end on CATIA and some other things, and you can essentially design for fabrication in this space. And so the first thing that you said, that's exciting to see that. Another point that I would almost I would accept and challenge you on is that with all these things going online, it is going to be interesting that folks, of course, they're not going to want to go to, well, let me back up. I feel that most people go to school because of the certification that they get that allows them to get the job they think they want, more than learning the knowledge. So for people that it's just about like saying, hey, I want to go out there and learn the knowledge. Yeah, you never have to step foot in a university ever. And you could have like an MIT education, a Harvard education, all these prestigious schools. Yet I feel, and I hope I'm wrong, that most people that I've met and come across, I feel that it's more about the focus on, I've got this degree from Stanford than this school or something else, right? And because that does matter. And until HR departments, to be quite honest, change, and some other, requirements there, that unfortunately is going to be the case. Now, with that said, it is going to push these schools to say, hey, why is your tuition $80,000 a year, right? Because I'm getting the same course online as Laney's offering down there, and is your brand worth the 20, 30 years of college debt? What's your,
this is something that I've tracked and followed myself quite a bit. So anytime I see any news around this of, who is not requiring 4-year degrees anymore, who's looking at merit-based hiring versus, versus credential-based hiring, I've seen, a lot of the tech industry now, Facebook and LinkedIn and Google and many of these others, they're actually coming together and collectively saying, we are no longer interested in your degree. We're gonna test your knowledge, and when we verify that you have the knowledge, we will offer you a job. But the degree is no longer the gatekeeper. It's not the requirement to open the door in the first place. And so, it's going to take a while, and it's going to take a lot of institutions, a lot of businesses kind of stepping on up to the plate with that same concept. But it's happening now, and just as we've seen, like during pandemic time, everything gets accelerated, everything stops, and then all of a sudden everything completely reinvents almost overnight. I think we're going to see that continue to grow. And so it's just, up to people to go and gain the knowledge and the expertise that you need, or that you think you need, regardless of whatever credential you get in the first place.
Well, again, for the things that need it, I definitely want my doctor to, have his degree. But, for the person that's developing programs or, again, the hands-on learning, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Very exciting
Cool.
times,
Well,
even though everything's on
yeah.
pause.
Yeah, well, exactly. Everything's on pause, and yet it is kind of reinventing overnight. So I think we're gonna wrap this up here. This is FabCity now. We're diving into the FabCity concept. I just want to thank Damon
Thank you
for
for
making
having me.
time to do this. And then I've got some exciting stuff happening. That started about 15 minutes ago. There's the East Bay Innovation Awards, in here in Northern California, and now I can see it's signal's cutting out, so I'm gonna turn myself off, but I'll find out here hopefully in the next 10-15 minutes if I've gotten that award for some of the work that I've
Well,
done.
best of luck to you on that,
So
Danny.
once again, thank you, and I also want to thank yeah. I want to thank Joe Sullivan for helping on the back end here, and Peralta TV for allowing his time to assist on all of this. So once again, thanks a lot, and I will talk to everyone next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.